Hi, welcome back. Today I'm talking with Corinna Baldauf. We talked about how the use of feedback links usability and agile, translations of agile books, and the art of not knowing. I'm Yves Hanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it. Hello everyone, and hello Corinna. I think that's how to pronounce it. Is this correct, Corinna?
Yes, that's excellent.
Great. And I like to ask it on camera because, well, the way we are these days is we're working with people all over the world and we don't always know exact how to pronounce names. So that's why I thought it was interesting. And what I want to show as well is oops, and it doesn't, what's happening here? I'm trying to show, yes. Um, I'm in Belgium and like trying to show this is Ghent and we're moving to Düsseldorf where you are if I'm correct. And this is a little bit, so it's not that far, but that's a little bit on where we are. And on my side in Belgium, this is 1944, and I think on your side it's the same time zone.
Yes, we're in the same time zone.
So that's a little bit extra knowledge that is interesting for people to know. So Corinna, for the people that don't know you, tell us a little bit, who are you?
Hi. I'm Corinna Baldauf, and I am primarily known, I think, as the creator of Retromat.
Mm.
Also,
And I can actually, I did prepare it. I didn't say that, but I did prepare a little bit. So that is the Retromat, a little bit of how it looks or how it looked at one time. I'm not sure if it still looks like that, but I think so.
This is the social media header.
Yes, okay, yes, of course. It was the header that I took. Yeah, because I think from the website, I'm not sure if I remember correctly, but I think from the website it was hard to take a picture, and I didn't want to take a screenshot, so I thought that's because it's a very clever way how it's how it's created, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, tell us a little more. What is that?
Retromat. So the year is 2012, I think. And I had read Agile Retrospectives by Diana Larsen and Esther Derby, and I was like, this is amazing. And I also wanted more activities. And back then, so I read a lot of blog posts on individual activities that you can do in retrospectives. And the book had this really neat format of the phases, of 5 phases of a retrospective. And I thought, would be really neat if I could have like a suggestion basically for that, instead of something that just sparks what I could be doing in a retrospective, so that it would be faster than always rereading the book or reading blog posts. And Redumat just does that. So it's a collection, I think 145 or so activities that you can do in retrospectives, and they are all sorted in phases, and so that you get a suggestion. It's meant for experienced facilitators. These are random. They will not fit if you just take whatever the page presents to you. So you still have to have some knowledge, but there are some helps for people to get you started if you don't have the experience yet to know which ones will fit together.
But I really liked it when you launched it, or I think I knew it rather early when you launched it, because indeed, even as experienced facilitators, sometimes it's like, okay, what will I do now? And I could just go onto the website, click a few things, and say, hey, this is a nice combination of doing things, and bam, I have it. Because if I know them, it's pretty easy to do, and it takes some of my time of the preparation away, not everything, because you still need some preparation for some of the exercises. So yeah, that's how I got to know you and that work. So that's that thing. So thanks. And but okay, that's just one thing. Is there anything else we need to know about you?
Um, I used to work for a really long time for a company that is a little bit like an agile poster child in Germany called Zipgate, and we wrote a book about the way that we're working. So I think that one is interesting. I think
Hmm.
we'll get to that later.
We'll talk then. We'll talk a little bit later about that. But that's already interesting because that's a part I didn't know. So that's definitely something that is interesting to talk about and learn some more. But okay, let's move into that very first question. What is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
um, so especially when I started blogging, I wrote more about that because it was more prevalent. So people who have started reading my blog very, very early might still know that. But before Agile, my love was usability. Back in the day when
Mm,
UX was a relatively new term, so user experience wasn't really an established term, so usability. And I feel that to this day, this is like a mindset that I see a lot of the world through. So I don't know, like the basic assumption that if something doesn't work for people, it's not them
mm,
or testing. So I do a lot of writing, but I usually test this with like the intended or audience. Is this clear? Can I make it clearer? Stuff like that. And also, when Zipgate started transitioning to Agile in 2010, I think my pre-knowledge was basically I'd read the manifesto once, probably not even the principles. But the whole usability experience, and I think it was taught really, really well where I learned it, is to have a design, implement, adapt cycle. So
mm,
rings a bell probably for a lot of people. So I think the thought that you have to show people something to get feedback on it very early and then iterate on it. That was a thought that was already really well established in my mind. And so when Agile came along for me, so I experienced it, I was like, yeah, well, I mean, it's of course this will work because
mm.
that's the same way that it works.
I like the way you put it because I remember when I started with Agile, I also read some books about usability and others. I was totally no expert, but I read something. And for me, a lot of these things like personas and a lot of other things, they worked really well. And it was like 10 years later, I heard, yeah, but these are two different kind of communities and they don't work well. And I was like, what? What would it mean? How can you even think about that? Because for me, it felt like they felt so logical together, and so yeah, it's interesting to learn that you come then more from the other side or really with very experience, and for you it felt also very natural. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, I always felt that, and I see, I would say these days, a lot more people trying to combine these things. But there was a moment that people said, yeah, but usability and if you think about that, that can be agile because we want to have a more design sprint and whatever. It's like, yeah, but yeah, for me, it felt like it can work together without much problems. So that is nice to hear where you're coming from. Um,
Ah, okay. So you're talking more about how UX work and development work fit together.
I was thinking more globally, but that's one of the different. I'm just trying to pick out one of the things that I heard over the last years. Well, last years, I think the last 5 years that went away again. But at some point, there were people really like, no, but these people, and it's like, well, I don't know,
Mhm.
because I really like the way you what you started out saying. Okay, the fact that you do something and you want feedback,
Mhm.
both of these communities work really well. They thrive on feedback for me. That's a little bit what I see in many of these. Well, and I think there's not the only communities, because I think it's a very logical thing to do.
Yeah.
But sometimes people think, yeah, have different kind of things. So you had that experience, and it's interesting that you said you when you started out with Agile, you just had that manifesto. that first page, do you still remember what that brought you when you read that page? What?
Yeah, but that was during my studies. So
Mm.
I don't think that I had more than, yeah, that makes sense. And then when we started with Agile at Zipgate, um, we read one book, I think most of us, and we also had training by Agile 42. So I think
And do you remember what was the book that you read? That one book, if you do remember.
I did not think it was very good. And I
Okay,
think I
then
think
don't
the
talk
German
about it. And
translation
don't.
I think the German translation really butchered it. So it might have been okay
Ah,
in English, but the German translation was horrible. And
that's
now
yeah.
I know there are better books available. We've got so much more knowledge, but it was about Scrum.
But yeah, I've read a few books, Scrum books that I read in Dutch and I read it in English. And I literally, so at one of my clients, they used a Dutch book about Scrum. And so I bought the Dutch version and I completely couldn't make any sense about that one, where I knew Scrum already pretty well at that moment. So I bought the English version and then I started to understand what was in the book because like you say, it was really butchered and it was translated, and from a technical translation point of view it made sense, but if you just read the Dutch sentence from an agile point of view, it didn't make any sense. And it actually for me it made me think much harder about translations, because yes, you can have good translations from a technical point of view, but if you don't understand the context and if you don't understand the industry, you can actually create really bad translations, if you ask me. And it's interesting to hear that it's something similar. And I don't know if it's the same book. It also doesn't matter. But yeah, I've seen similar kind of stuff, and I personally helped out with a few community translations of books where I think it makes much more sense. And I know one of these translations was looked after by an official translator that didn't like some of these things that we did.
Mhm.
And when I discussed it with that person, I actually like, yeah, I understand why your translation is better Dutch, but no, I disagree because it's not better on English on Agile. And so yeah, I go back and forth. It's a little bit yeah. It's not easy to translate ideas from Agile, I would say sometimes. So I think that's. But you were not just the book. You were also helped by. Did I hear it correctly? Agile 42,
Mhm.
a famous German company in the Agile world, I would say.
Yeah.
Where there's well still lots of friends there working there, and so yeah, so that's a completely different support, I would mean, than just the book.
Yes, definitely.
um, so let's move to that second question, that if you had not been doing what you've been doing now, do you have any idea what could have become of you? Was there something destined for you to be? That's sometimes how I say the question.
Oh, I think if I was destined to be that, I would be that. But I definitely a teacher. I would have become a teacher.
Mm.
Not even sure for what topic, but I hail from a long line of teachers in my family, teachers and priests.
Mm.
So
Which sometimes are teachers in one way or another. Let's not go too much into detail, but that's because that's a completely different kind of topic. Although agile and preaching, we sometimes see that as well. So there is another part of that. Um, and in a sense, you are a teacher, I would say, because you're teaching people about agile and thinking. So is that something that where is that different for you? Maybe let's start with that, because you say you come from a long line of teachers. Of course, teaching in school and in the industry is different. Do you see what are the differences for you?
so for starters, I the parts of my job that are pretty much the same, like training. I really enjoy training, um,
Hmm.
but you can invest a lot more time than you can if you have to like give a lecture like every day or 3 ones that you have to prepare. You can put a lot more thought and preparation in a single workshop, usually, than you could do in a classroom training. Also, you work with adults, which I like a lot better. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't want to work with kids. An aspect that might be similar with training is so with kids, they grow up and there's a new generation that you teach, and you teach the same concepts again and again and again. That is something that can also happen to you in like Agile, but I typically don't like to do that. So to teach the same.
In a sense that what um, well, how I translate it, and it's of course more a question than a statement, but when you teach things, when next week you might teach the same workshop, but you have learned different things and you teach it in a different way. It's that a little bit, and with children, the next year you might need to teach them again mathematics or German or whatever, and you kind of need to explain the same thing because that's what the school system is expecting to. Is that the difference that you mean, or is it something else?
No, it's that I can choose to not do the same training over and over and over again. And if I'm a teacher, I do not have that much leeway because there's a certain standardization going on. So teachers used to be able to pick a lot more which material they cover, and it's gotten because you've got like standardized A levels, so you gotta teach the same thing over and over and over and over, and you cannot swap, I don't know, Hamlet for Romeo and Juliet if you want to. It's clear.
Yeah, because we're like to this whatever a commission has decided that this year everybody teaches Hamlet and the next 10 years or whatever, even if for whatever reason there might be something out that is very relevant to now start talking about Romeo and Juliet. Well, too bad. The decision was taken that it's Hamlet this year, and that's a yeah. I recognize that that's probably one of the main reasons why I don't want to teach as well. Um, it's also the reason why I'm not a Scrum trainer, for example. I like a lot of the things I've learned a lot of that, but the same training over and over again and again. Lots of my friends that are doing that, they're not training the same thing over and over, but still there is a basic set that is very similar, of course. They can adjust more than in the school system, but definitely there is still some things. And what I'm hearing is that yeah, basically you're free to do what you want to maybe exaggerate a little bit, but that's what you like there.
Freer than a teacher, definitely.
That I can see. Okay, let's move to that third question. What is your biggest challenge and why is it a good thing for you? And of course, the biggest challenge that you want to be out on the internet, open there.
Yeah, that one, I thought about that one for a bit. And I think what is tricky for me is finding the middle ground. So when I started out in 2010, a lot of the times I thought I knew the answer. And if everybody would just go with my solution, we'd be golden. So
Life would be so much easier if they listened to you.
exactly. And then I found, I think in 2015, solution focus. And there, one of the mindsets is, or the principles is that the art of not knowing. So everybody is the expert for their own situation. And that was really like a massive, maybe I don't know better. Maybe they know better.
And how easy was that for you to, because I can imagine if you have that mindset, I'm the smartest person, I'm teaching here, or I'm here hired to help you. How easy was that then for you to agree when people were teaching you solution focused?
Easy to grasp because I also wanted to. I was open for that. Also, I don't.
You were ready for it, or
It's
is
not
that how it should?
Yeah, I was ready for it. Also, it's not about that I thought I was the smartest, just well, in that very focused area, maybe. Actually, it's so long ago that I'm not really sure why and how I thought that. But it clearly wasn't working. So the other way.
Ah,
And
you, and in that sense, you're probably ready because you were trying to, why don't they get it? Why don't they get it? And after a couple of times, maybe it's not they, maybe
maybe it's me. um,
something like that. Oh, yeah, I so recognize that. I think many of us, when we're so convinced about something, we so want to help out people, and then we don't realize that actually we are, yeah, that was something that was really good for us, but maybe not for the people that we're trying to help.
yeah.
Um,
Um, yeah. So, but it still took a lot of time to cultivate that new mindset
mm,
of other people. So to go into situations with curiosity. So what are the others seeing that I'm not seeing, so that they think that
mm.
this is the better solution. Also to
So
really
what I'm hearing is that at that moment you were already kind of convinced that's the way to go forward, but you had some habits that were still there that were hard to let go, or is it more like it was hard to actually open to really be curious? Or what part was that?
um it's not so much outward behavior, it's more the thinking process. So that I come into it and I'm like, I think I've seen this before, and I know what to do, and then to take the step back and like, no, let's ask a couple of questions first and find out, because a lot of the time it turns out that it's different from what I initially thought. And that really helps. And also not to come up with solutions at all prematurely, but to be there to help people to develop their own solutions, which are often different. And I assume better because they created them for their.
I'm not sure what happened, but we're
Okay.
here back. So, right, sorry, yeah, that's the very first time I had something like that happen. I hope that the recording is still there, so I'm going to keep it. I still see it, and yes, of course, if this is going live, it means that the recording was live, so I will know. One thing that I said late in the preparation, one thing I cannot know is how recordings are happening and what's the quality.
Mm.
Uh, for with more than 100 recordings, I didn't have any problem yet. So let's assume that this is still the case. So you were explaining. You're explaining the part where it was hard for you to grasp and to be curious. I think that's what you're
Yeah,
busy with.
it's more to catch myself when I was thinking that I knew the answer, to take a step back. And here now comes the current challenge, that I worked so hard on this mindset that I think sometimes I'm overdoing it with it. So so there are situations where people are looking for direction or for more options. So that I'm trying to find the sweet spot where I bring back because I have a lot of experience, to at least present options and advise which one of them I think are better options in this situation, but still stay curious and explore before jumping into anything. And yeah, I think there's a sweet spot there, and I need to find it.
Yeah, I've been struggling a lot with that. I can give you a little bit ideas of what I'm trying to do these days. Again, I don't want to give the solution to you, but what I recognize that struggle so much because it's indeed at some point when we have some little bit experience, it's like okay, we just want to help out when people ask questions, but when people are really in the beginning and even after now agile existing for more than 20 years, we discover people who are completely new and they want guidelines. I mean, in the beginning when you really, and so what I've learned over the years is when people are really new, the best thing is like say, okay, I think for in your situation that what you need to do, it could be scrum, it could be kanban, doesn't really matter. I tell them like, okay, this is what I think is best in your situation. When they're a little bit further away, for me it's like more like, okay, I see two or three options. I present them all the options to you, and I tell people like, in your case, I do think it's one of these, and we have a discussion about that. If it's a little bit later, I do the same thing, two, three options, and then I say, what do you think is best? And I let them choose. And then later it's more like, okay, what are the options you see, and helping that. And I had to learn over the years that, and because in the beginning I was, or at the point where I think you're talking about, you're like, I'm at the end. Okay, what are the options you see? It's like, well, I'm completely new. I don't see any options. Give me help. And people got really frustrated because I wasn't giving them solutions.
Mm.
And what I think what I'm at this point in my is that I always want to give a little bit. So there is the moment that you can give too much. Or where are my hands? This is too much work, or this is not enough. So yeah, I want to show the hard the long part. So it's like you either give too much help or not enough. And I prefer to err on the side of not giving enough, but
Mm.
making sure that people know that, and when they don't get enough, that they have the responsibility to ask it for. But
Mhm.
I've learned I have to tell them and I have to repeat them moreover, because if I don't, at some point people will complain and say, well, you didn't help me enough.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah.
I was kind of waiting for you to ask that question. And I don't think I really like how you say it about that sweet spot. I think it's almost impossible to get it. So if I make mistake, I prefer to make mistakes on not give enough, because I'm convinced, and that might be different for other people, but I'm convinced if I give too much, I keep people small because they can't to rely too much on me.
Mhm.
But yeah, if I go too much on the other side on not giving enough help, they will complain that I didn't help them. So even with all that, I still need to find more that better that sweet spot.
Yeah. I don't think it's a global sweet spot. I think
True.
it's a sweet spot per person.
Hmm.
So what do
Yes.
they need? And I just remember that when we started out, and the answer to everything was it depends. That is just so frustrating. I just want you to give me the answer. So now I know there's no answer. So that's why it depends. But yeah.
But it's frustrating because yeah, there is no right answer, but there is always an answer, and it might not be the best answer, but it's better than no answer. And the depends is indeed so frustrating. Well, depend that again is about the people itself, because if some people really want to have a secure place and know everything, and if you then tell them like, well, in Agile there is actually multiple good options, they're like, no, I want that one option, give me the truth, the universal truth. And yeah, that's and somehow, and maybe I'm wrong, but in my idea about Germans, these a lot of the official culture, German culture, is like there is only one answer, there is the perfect thing. And of course, I know cultures are not universal, but I think there is more. Let's put it like that: more people in Germany that want that one answer than maybe Italians that say okay, or Spanish people.
I'd agree with that. Yes.
At least something I do. But I like how you bring that whole discussion, and how that challenge, because I think a lot of us coaches, we're that is our challenge. How could we help best the people by not giving them too much, because it will keep people small, and at the same time give them enough that they're interested in learning more, and that they realize, okay, there is actually something that can help me. And it is a very challenge, and I think yeah, you stated it very clear, finding that sweet spot. And there is no universal sweet spot. What is actually good for a person today might not be the good thing tomorrow, or the week before. So even personally, that sweet spot doesn't exist, or that moves. And that makes our job at the same time, well, if I speak for me, that makes it challenging and rewarding and frustrating at the same time, all together. Um, that's So thanks for bringing that up, and I hope that it inspires people, and I hope when people hear this that they say, oh, I'm not alone, because that's definitely how it feels when you talk about it. So it's like, oh, I recognize that part in helping out other people. That's definitely. And while you were saying it, I was actually thinking about my current role, where I'm now moved a little bit away from coaching. So I took again on engineering manager role, and I know that one of the desires of that people is bring me an exact solution, and I'm that's really annoying that we have it multiple times. So okay, um, so I'm trying to find that balance between this is really annoying. So yeah, okay, let's cut that out. So I'm trying to find that balance between giving them enough and at the same time listening enough, because yeah, it's good to think about that, because that the frustration from the customer side, at the same time there might be people saying you steer too much, and at the same time others people like I'm still new, give it to me, give more information, and it's a hard balance to find, I would say, in our job.
Yeah.
So thanks for bringing that up. I want to move to that next question, because I think already with a lot of what you talked, you are a driven and you are a passionate person. I think that is very clear already how you talk about things. Also, the way that you learn about, you read a book about retrospectives, you like it so much that you immediately create a tool about it because you want to do more. That is a lot of passion. It's also a very nice website that is really very stylish. So there is a lot of drive and passion there. Do you have any idea where that comes from, that passion and that drive?
Well, I'm circling back. I think it's the teacher genes that I have.
Mm.
So whenever I learn something, I want to share it. So also, I don't know if you know wall skills, so summaries of topics. And I'm not just sharing them with others, I'm also sharing them with myself in the future, because I've got a
Mm,
memory and I look up my own stuff a lot. This is like my extended brain,
memory
my extended memory. Also, it's easier. So I like being able to just send a link to people and not having to explain it to every time again and again and again. So
I recognize that of all the games I created, basically good manuals, and I'm probably the number one reader of these manuals, because, yeah, I just did a game last week with that I haven't done in a long time because of Corona and everything. And so, yeah, the night before, even with everything in my mind, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. But I also downloaded again my own manual to read it again and flip to it. And of course, I read it very diagonal because I don't need to read everything, but just enough to remind myself, oh, yeah, I should do this and I should not forget this. And oh, these are the tools I need. And yeah, that extended memory I recognize so much. It's part for, yeah, it's good that other people can read it, but it's first and foremost for myself. At least in my case, I'm the first user of it, I would say.
no, I'm not. I think I would put in a lot less detail and other things. So I still
Hmm.
think about how do I make it accessible for other people. Um, but so that makes me put in more effort than I would put in for myself.
For yourself, right? Yeah, it's maybe not very fair to myself to say it's only for myself, because indeed I will put some more effort in it. But at the same time, yeah, I well, this is one way how I notice. I might think that the manual is really good, and then a year later I tried it, and it's like, wait, what did I do? Oh, there is actually something I did that I didn't write down, and it
Mm.
should be. And so, yeah, I'm trying, helping my future self remember some of these things. And it's also for me, well, like I said, the material, what do I need? I really literally, I don't want to think about that. The next time I do it, it should be in the manual. It should just give me a list and
Yeah.
and because yeah, especially if you swap a lot workshops or other kind of things. For me, that's really interesting. But I do recognize the important part where you say you put more detail because, of course, yeah, for yourself is probably a little bit less needed, and probably yeah, it can be just a Google document for yourself where for others it might be you want to have it a little bit more polished. I can definitely see that part. Mm. And when you said there is that teacher in me to teach it, is there something that you learn? Because you said you were coming from a family full of teachers, a long history of teachers. Is that something that your parents taught you, or that you grasped, or do you know where that part is coming from?
Hmm. That's a really good question. Um, no, I I think a general wish for education. So education was always important. Reading was important. There are a lot of people in my family that will what nowadays you call info dump. So they will tell you stuff. So a documentary that they watched or a book that they read. So a lot of sharing of stuff that they learned. So I saw that this, but not concepts like, I don't know, how do I give a good presentation, how do I run a good workshop, how do I break concepts down.
But
That I did not learn there.
but they shared what they cared about, and you add in that extra layer on top of that. That's something I'm hearing, because that these are the things that you realize, hey, this is making a difference if I also teach you how you do this and that. Where what I'm hearing, that the people that did it earlier in your life, or the people around you, they basically reshare what they've read somewhere or what they heard, while you add your extra sauce to it, if I put it like that. I'm not sure if that's unrespectful or.
It's very different contexts. So I'm not sure how they translate, but so that you share interesting. So if you're a nerd,
Mhm.
interesting stuff with each other. That was installed. Also, I was in the. I'm not sure how well this is known globally, but the Chaos Computer Club in Germany is a famous computer thing, and I went there in my 20s, and that also influenced me a lot in terms of privacy, like, and
Mm,
also sharing stuff in form of open source. So there's a very strong open source um, mindset at work. So that really influenced.
mm. So that is indeed lots of different kind of how would I say it, cultures coming together again, which I can definitely see that has an influence. So thanks for sharing that, because just by asking some extra, you add the Chaos Computer Club to that. So definitely try to link to that. It's a name that rings any bells, and I'm not sure if I understand the full or grasp the full concept. In Belgium, the abbreviation brings in completely other bells, because that makes us think about something completely different, which I don't want to go too much into detail now. But yeah, that's a different kind of thing. But it's also very nice because it shows the world where indeed computer clubs were in different kind of ways important in bringing cultures and different kind of things in our life. These days, of course, computers are all around. We use it to access information, but yeah, back 30 years ago or more, that was not the case. Computers were not wired to the internet. Something my kids don't understand. For them, it's like, how could you use a computer without the internet? But yeah, that was the
Makes,
case in these days.
yeah, makes total
You
sense.
you installed software with disks and with cassette disks and decks and stuff like that. So that's a completely different world I was. Um, I want to move to that next question. What is your biggest achievement? And the question below, because basically this is your moment to brag. How easy is that for Corinna to brag? Is that easy?
Very hard. It's very hard, like really hard.
And
Uh,
still you have the opportunity. Everybody's here to hear you brag about what are your the thing that you're most proud of. Or I don't know, the biggest achievement. Maybe you're not the most proud of, but what do you consider your biggest achievement so far?
well, it depends a little. So as a parent, I feel compelled to say my kids. um, but if you're
As many parents, maybe not all, but I think most parents at some point. So that is definitely something I think is valuable. Um, is there any particular about that you want to say, or do you say no? I want to talk about the non-personal part. I don't know.
um,
It's up to you.
no, I'd move to professional.
Oh, come on. That's really at the worst moment to have that happen.
Uh, so no, I think I'd move to professional achievements. Um, so the biggest achievement is probably the Retromat in
Mhm.
terms of impact and in terms of people that it supports. If we stick with the what are you most proud of, then it's probably the Zipgate book, the first one, 24 work hacks.
Hmm.
But that one was also obviously a team effort. So the whole art direction, art concept is by Tim Moyes, who was my boss at the time. Um, le- Part of what makes it great and something to be really proud of is all the photography. So I just think it's beautiful. And I still really like browsing through it. This one actually also probably had a lot of impact, at least in Germany. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, but and yeah, I
That
think
that these are two both nice things, and I like the fact that you say, okay, it was a teamwork. It's what I'm hearing is it was based on the culture from the company you're working in, and then have impact in the sense that you taught people, hey, this is what we're doing, and it seems
mm,
to kind of work, and people, what I'm hearing, got inspired by that. Um, the Retromat, we talked already a little bit about that before. Um, uh, how many people are using it these days? You have any idea? Because I can definitely see that that is still useful. It's not that I'm using it all the time, but from time to time, I actually think like, oh, I need a little inspiration, and I would still go there.
mhm. So I use it all the time, actually. Every time I do a retrospective, still, although I know them, most of them by heart, the activities. Yeah, I do have a pretty good idea. I haven't looked it up recently, but the number that I do check occasionally is unique users monthly,
Hmm.
and it's 30,000 people
Wow,
between 25
that's
and
not
30.
that's not bad for yeah, but to have kind of people. That's definitely. And but yeah, I'm not surprised because it's indeed it's a very nice collection of things there. And like I said earlier on, if you need some inspiration, because it's tempting to get boring kind of things, and you say, and also a good reminder about the 5 stages, because it's like, okay, it's not like we just do one exercise in a retrospective. You really want to do it well. It's good to think about the multiple parts of that. So it's also a good reminder there because it has exercises for the different kind of stages. So that is indeed an important part. So I think you're, of course, this is something that you can be proud of, and that had some impact. So thanks for sharing this. It's uh, it's an interesting part, and of course, I will link to both. I don't know, is the book still available? That the other the book,
Yeah, English and German
uh,
on Amazon.
and only in German. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah,
No,
so
it's
not.
also there's an English version.
Okay, there's an English version. So again, one of the things to make sure I can download. I'm always it's interesting because yeah, I like these kind of books because it's an inspiration about what people have done it. Some of the books about agile is like, oh, very theoretical one, but this is very actual. This is working in this company at this moment. That's how I'm hearing it. And that helps also to inspire people. Oh, we can actually start, because I assume even though it was a success in the beginning, it might not have been easy to do this kind of thing in that company.
So just to set expectations, it's not so much teaching, and it's more if you
Storytelling.
if you wanna go agile with a company and you do it like really with all of the company and not just like the IT department or whatever, this is what it could look like. Is that something that you might like?
Yeah, that's how I understood it a little bit. Oh, I didn't know that it was for the full company, but I kind of understood it as that kind of story. Well, we know some other stories from other famous companies. Let's not go into these examples. But I think it's good to that people realize, hey, every company is different, and this is what we've done, and this is how. And I like how you put it, how it might look like, because I'm already sure that for whatever other company it will look different. It's just an inspiration. I think that is an important thing to see. Okay, let's move to that next one, and that is, do you have a personal agility tip to share? Is there anything that you think this is good for people to know?
Um, I have one now because I've thought about it now. Didn't have one before. But I think one of the things that are really powerful about Agile is the idea that you can cut scope rather than
Mm,
quality, or rather than trying to do everything. And I think that this is also that. So it feels like everybody has too much to do. Maybe there are some lucky people out there that don't. And checking, do I actually need to do that? What happens if I don't do that? So all these things
mm.
that we push from week to week to week, but they are always in our backlog, always in our to-do list, the personal one. What happens if I admit to myself that I'm never gonna do that? What happens?
Wow,
And
that's yeah. I like, because there's actually multiple tips here. Right? The fact that indeed um, all of us, we have, well, I think it's fair to say that most companies have more ideas than they have time. I think that's very fair. It's the same thing for people. There's lots of things, and I think I learned that from the book Getting Things Done. I'm not sure if you know the book, but there in that book there's one thing that he says, some things you can better call, or you should store them under one day maybe. And so it's like, it's a good idea. I might learn that, but let's face it, probably not. And let's just put it somewhere as a frozen project. And maybe in some time, if you have again energy, you can take it out. But don't drag it along on your to-do list and look at it every day and feel bad that you didn't do it. That's a little bit what I've learned at that time. And just giving myself the how would I call it, the freedom to let go of some stuff, the energy that it generated. For me, it was like, oh, I can actually do this.
yeah, because yeah, saying no to some things means saying yes to other things. So
Oh yeah, I think, yeah, it's, I don't remember to who I said it, but I said it, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, to someone, that if you people that are not able to say no, I don't really trust their yes, because they keep saying yes and yes and yes. And it's like, yeah, but does that actually mean that you're going to do it? And I have to be honest, 20 years or 30 years ago, I was such a pleaser as well. I was saying yes to everything. I was, well, I did realize enough to not getting burned out. So I kind of said yes, but then didn't do it, which didn't feel well as well. But if I would have done everything, I would have burned out. But at the same time, yeah, it took me a while to actually realize, hey, wait a minute, maybe I should say no to people, even if it's, yeah, it's a wonderful idea, but sorry, no, because otherwise it means I have to say no to other stuff that I've actually already committed to. Because I think that's the part. Huh? At some point, you say yes, and then you keep adding stuff, and then it's like you say, you keep dragging that on my to-do list for a long time, and then it's like, yeah, and then people around you complain that you didn't do it, and you're like, yeah, I still want to do it, and the larger people complain, the maybe the more chance I will do it, and everybody's unhappy, or at least that's how it felt to me at that moment. So
I think that's part of the experience of getting older, that you realize that it's fairer to say the no now, because then people can plan with that. And but if I say yes, and I will probably not get around to it, then they will keep me in the loop. So that's more emails asking me for that thing that I said I was going to do.
even more work. Now they keep asking me about it.
Cut it off now in the beginning. It's fair.
Yeah, and it's fair. I think that's a very nice way to put it. And people think we say yes because we want to keep people happy, but actually they're unhappy at the end. And I prefer to say no and then still do it, because then people most of the time will be happy if I surprise them with some extra. Not always, because if I do it and they already ask someone else, that it might it might not be good. But yeah, saying yes and not doing it is definitely not the right answer. I think this is such an important tip, and yeah, maybe it has to do with getting older. I definitely wished I learned that much younger. That's for sure. But it's such an important thing. So thanks for sharing this, because I think so many people can learn it. Definitely my younger self and many other people I see around me, both young and old, still have a hard time. It's such an important tip, and I like the way you said it. And it actually creates a lot more workaround that the emails, the questions, the anxiety, feeling like, oh damn it, I'm going to meet this person and I promised this and I can't do it, and I don't. The whole shebang around it, that it drags energy. At least that it did for me, in my younger me, I would say. And yeah, and still saying no is sometimes hard, because when people ask you, it disappoints them. But like you say, it's so much fairer, and they will actually. I know for myself, even how hard it is to say no. When people tell me no, I'm actually happy that they told me no. And it's kind of strange. Even there, this recording, if sometimes people tell me no, it's like, oh, sad, but yeah, glad that you said no instead of postponing it and not doing it. So, a very important tip. Thank you very much. And maybe go a little bit. Do you still remember when you learned that, or is that something that you were good at right from the start?
I don't think I was always good at it, but I also don't remember when I learned it. So this was gradual, I think. I
Yeah, I
think
can
the
definitely.
theoretical underlining of WIP limits, and that really helped also. So having a theory, a working theory of that.
Yeah, thanks, because that's indeed the limiting work in progress is definitely something that helps with that. But even like you say, understanding it theoretically and then doing it, that still is the next step, I would say. So thanks for adding that. Okay, let's move to that next thing. What have you learned about remote working? And so a lot of us, we learned remote working during COVID. Was this something that you did already before, and how does that?
No, I learned during COVID and slightly delayed, because at the beginning of COVID, I was still on parental leave. So
Hmm.
I came back and had like a disadvantage to other people who had already had been using.
People were struggling, they had learned it a little bit, and now you're entering the world, and it had completely shifted. Well, re-entering the world of work. That's what I wanted to say. And yeah, all of a sudden, the world had shifted.
Very, very much. So it was Zipgate went fully remote at that time. So what I learned about myself as a facilitator is that I have a very hard time focusing when it's remote.
Mm.
and I do not. So I need different techniques and different tools to stay in the loop. That's the problem that I do not have in a live retrospective, because I'm there and I'm only there, and I'm only there to hold space for other people, and there's nothing else that I can do. But when it's remote and people, for example, are just writing down items, then me doing something productive like answering an email or Slack message, that is just one tap away, and it's really easy to get suckered into that. But then I'm not paying attention anymore, and it's already harder to pick up cues and clues when it's
remotely.
remotely. So not giving into that temptation of I could be doing something else on top of this. I learned this. That was hard in the beginning until I figured it out.
Yeah, I get, yeah, I still see myself struggling with that in different kind of ways. Like you say, it's the moment that, of course, like here we're in interaction, that's very easy to to keep connected and to keep in this conversation. But like you say, when people write down, we or at least I, and I think many facilitators, we want people first in a minute or two write down ideas before we jump into that, because we know it activates, especially for introverts, their brain in a different way. But then, and we want people to be quiet for 2 minutes, but okay. And yeah, if you're in the room, you walk around, you see a little bit, you see the body language, you know a little bit. Remote, it's already hard. And then, like you say, there is an extra screen or there's something else, and there is maybe an email popping up, maybe something else. And yeah. So, do you have any tips for that? What would do? Because you say you struggled with it. Did you do something special to learn to force you in doing that?
Um, None other than realizing that this was not a good idea and that it wasn't working. So it wasn't helping anybody if I tried to do anything else. Um, not allowing myself to open any tabs, and having only the tab with the meeting and only the mirror board open into windows that do not have any other tabs. No notifications, no nothing. So that like an isolation mode. But other than that, no. I think the bigger part was the realizing that this isn't helping, and this is might be efficient, but it's not effective. And if I
I like so much how you say the efficient and effectiveness, because it's, yeah, I think this is part of where the agile world really focus on, okay, let's focus on the effectiveness, where the rest of the world sometimes focus, let's be more efficient, let's, yeah, use that time. But nope, it's not working.
it's not working. And a more general thing, so not just for me personally, is to make a lot things even more explicit than I did in real life meetings, because even more check-ins, more breaks, more frequent breaks, because I think people tire more easily. So in real life, I would
Mm.
typically have breaks after like 80 minutes, 90 minutes, and in remote 60 minutes is like the max, and then we take a break because people cannot sustain their attention. And also more explicit socializing. So if I want to build a team, bake that in. GeoGuessr,
Mm.
Kartik phone, playing games together. That becomes an explicit, because people will not meet at the coffee machine anymore.
Yeah, and I think that is very important to keep mentioning it, because people think, yeah, but we're then losing much more time. But actually, we already are so much more efficient because we're not going to the coffee machine, at least not together and whatever. And sometimes we even I've noticed myself, I might take my computer even back to the toilet at home, because I will be on Slack and nobody will notice it. And if I'm not in the meeting, it's like, no, this is not healthy at no level. And I should take some breaks and everything, and I should take indeed the time to connect. This is for me also why this is a very long format of the videos on YouTube, and people think it's not good, it should be even much shorter. And I'm like, yes, I understand, and at the same time, no, I want to keep the time to have these stories, to have it feel like a good conversation. And it takes longer. It's not a perfect situation to have tons of like hundreds of thousands of video viewers, but at the same time, like it should really feel like a good connection conversation like we're having in the bar. And yes, that is in the bar, it's never efficient. It's it's more effective, but it's definitely not efficient. That's a little bit what I want to do that. And I think it's really important that you stress out how yes, a lot of these things take more time, or you need to take more breaks. It's also about being more. Wasn't you just said be very more explicit about certain things? It's taking that time. So thank you very much for doing that. I want to move to that next question about a book. What's a book that you have read that you want to talk about? And I think
Um, it's Agilität.
that's the book.
Yes. Agilität Neu Denken by Klaus Leopold. English title is Rethinking Agile. So English version exists. And I think the important, really, really important thought is that a lot of what we talk about as agile people is on a team level, but
Mm-hmm.
that's really not the big lever for achieving business outcomes in a company.
Mm.
So on the team level, you have a very small lever. You've got lots of them, but it's often local optimization. And this one is if you want business agility, if you want shorter time to market, then agilizing, making the IT department agile is not going to do it, because you
Mm.
need to look at the whole value stream that you've got. And there's probably, experience tells us, a ton of waiting time in that. So the time to market will not go down at all with agile teams. It might even go up. So yeah, if you want to be
I like that you stress that, because I've seen in many companies where they're focused, yeah, let's release faster and whatever, and then you say, but wait a minute, when did you invent the store? Did this feature, this story, this whatever, that piece of work? Oh, we invented it 3 years ago, and this is why our clients are waiting for it, and this is now why we want it 3 minutes earlier. It's like, yeah, that 3 minutes won't make the difference for the 3 years that you've been working on it and perfecting it and whatever. And I think this is really, and of course once we're there we want to be it faster, but maybe we should look at the whole value chain, and maybe let's not bring the ideas that are 3 years down the road, but let's bring ideas that are invented last week, and can we bring them? Of course it's not that easy, because the 3 year ID that was promised we need to deliver at some point also, but yeah, it's
we
then bringing the team a day faster or whatever. It's
yeah.
not a big difference, and I think that's such a valuable lesson for many companies to learn. And it also shows a lot about the frustration that developers and teams feel, because it's like there's so much pressure on us, but they have wasted that much time. If they would have told us 3 years ago, we maybe the idea was even smaller, and we could have released it 3 minutes earlier because it was smaller, and maybe 3 years or 3 hours earlier, and that brings so much value. And I think that's an interesting concept to have people think about that. So I do think that that's really valuable. And if I want to go back a little bit, because in our pre-talk you said that because you were going to talk about it, that you reread that book. Is there something that struck you when you reread it? Is there something like, oh, I forgot that, or I yeah? Did it bring you anything new by rereading it?
Well, obviously refreshed a lot of things. um I'm not sure that if you had sat me down and made me remember before rereading it, but that you ideally want to start an agile transition with the top management, and that
Mm,
what you want in the end should also already be the way that you do it. So it's not very agile, to do an agile transformation as a waterfall project that pushes change instead of having people pull it, for example. So ideas like that. There are a lot of ideas in that, but I mainly reappreciated how well done this book is. It's written really easy to read. I think it's very clear. It's got a lot of illustrations. And it took me like 3 hours to reread. So it's a really, yeah,
Well,
like
and I think that's also very nice that when you, well, it for me is a kind of message that if you reread a book and you still find it interesting to read it cover to cover, and maybe you didn't read every page perfectly as well as the first time, still, if you do take the time to reread it and it still brings any value, that says a lot about the quality of the book, because there are books that I might have reread a little bit, parts of it, but usually if I don't like the book or if it doesn't bring me much value, I might not invest the time to reread it fully, because there's tons of other books I still want to read. So if you do think that it brings value to reread it, that brings a lot. I want to stress out also the part that you said about doing an agile transformation in a waterfallish way. That, yeah, it just, the idea is really bad, and at the same time I recognize that many of the companies at the moment that they want to go in an agile way, their only way of thinking is waterfallish way, so they don't understand that yet, that they need it. And I think this is why in a lot of big companies we sometimes have 3 or 4 waves of agilization, or whatever I should call it, because it's really the real valuable, like you say, agile way of implementing agile. They won't do it the first time because they're not ready for
yeah,
it. I
yeah,
think that is part of the thing. Yeah, even if we tell them, and they might say, yeah, yeah, but at the same time they will say, yeah, but when will we be done? That's so.
exactly. When will we? Never.
Yeah,
If you're
that's I
successful,
think.
you're never done.
But yeah, then we're not going to invest my money, because then it's not worth it, and then it's a different kind. But yeah, I think we can joke about it, but at the same time, this is the hard part about doing transformations. The people that need it most, they're not ready for it, and it will take a while before they grasp it. And of course, it's very easy for us to say, because we're 10, 20 years down the path, and we don't know that what the path that we already went to, and a little bit like you said, the limiting work in progress and everything, and saying no, that's also a kind of transformation, but then at a personal level. And I really like what you said earlier on. I didn't stress it at the time, but the fact that you don't know when you learned it says a lot. I think that's true for a lot of agilists, is that we learn some kind of concept that we grasp, and I don't know when I learned it. It's, yeah, it's not like learning to ride a bicycle. There's actually a moment that you can then say, then you were able to do that. But even there, yeah, the first few times that you drove 2 meters without falling, did you know how to drive a bicycle? A bit, but not really. The first time you did 10 kilometers, you definitely knew already, but somewhere in between, when was the exact moment? We don't know, I would say. And that's a little bit, I think, also with agile transformations. When are we really agile? Yeah, it's the moment that we're really there is clear, but when was that first moment that we were there? I'm not sure.
Also, I mean, in a bigger company, many different points in time.
Also true. Th- that's a very important message. A big company, there's not one change. There's multiple changes going on at the same time, and that's another part that is hard for them, because they all want people to run in the same speed, to run the same thing. It's like,
Yeah.
as if, yeah, I mean, it's not an oiled machine. Like, I don't know, we just had, what was it, the Vuelta finished. So if there is a cycling tour where, if it's, I don't think there was, but if there is a team, how's it called, a team, not a sprint, but a team time thing where the whole team has to drive the same
Ah,
speed, something. Yeah, it's a totally different game than having 200 cyclists going. They won't all drive the same speed. It's impossible. And I think it's many different sports. It's the same thing. I don't think that people who play football or basketball are running at the same speed, and still they're working together as a team. I think agile is about the same thing. We're not all agile in the same way, and that would not even work. I would probably think that would be not completely not agile.
yes.
So thanks for bringing that up, and it's nice that you think about a book that you read some time ago, then reread it and learned again some things, because that is also something that is for me rather agile. It's okay. I learned something. Let's reread it. Do I still agree? Do I still yeah? Is there still an agile part of that? So thanks for doing that. I want to move to that next question that I always look very forward to. What question do you think I should also ask you, and what's the answer?
Okay. So this is a silly one. It's one that I might use in like a workshop where I want people to get to know each other because it's just fun. And the question is Star Wars or Star Trek?
Hmm. And so that brings that very. Do you have a preference, or and is that preference always the same for you, or does it change from time to time?
Okay. So between those two, I have a definite preference, and it's Star Trek. So I'm
Mm.
definitely on the Trek side of things. But it's neither for me. It's Babylon 5. Babylon 5.
Oh.
So
So
something I
this is a tricky question because you ask a question and your answer is not even in there.
yeah.
And so now I'm intrigued at multiple levels. So why do you ask that question when you actually have a different kind of answer? Yeah, say some more about that.
Well, I had to come up with some answer, and I couldn't come up with one. And Babylon 5 would never be included. It's not as big as Star Wars or Star Trek. Arguably, you could also have asked about Firefly, which would very roughly be the same genre, although uh, definitely more out there than Babylon B5.
Mhm.
Um, and it's clear to me that this is the superior story. Okay, oh my god,
Mm.
I'm gonna make so many people angry. both, both huge fandoms. But what I like about Babylon 5 is the effects are really old and they were not really good when it was that time. Um, but it's very gritty. Actually, it made me fall out of love a little bit with Star Trek because I watched B5 and I was like, that's what it would be like. If we went to space, we
Mm.
would still all be petty. All of the other alien races would also be extremely petty, and we would have democracies that we're only somewhat satisfied with. And basically, all the stuff that's not really working right now would still be there. And also, there's toilets in space now. And you never get to see a toilet in Star Wars or Star Trek, so it's a lot more true to
Realistic.
life. And I like
I like that you put that, because indeed that it makes you rethink about some of the stories that we've seen. How realistic is it, and everything. Um, so it's interesting, but I also like the fact that you put out two options, and your answer is a third option, which I think is really good for workshops. If you because basically you're telling them there are no boundaries, and it's like, and I can already, I know some participants of some of my past workshops that will really get angry at me if I would do that, because like, you gave me two options and you selected the third option. Why do you even think of that there was an option? And but it's your question is really like, okay, what's a good fantasy story about, or fantasy is maybe the wrong word, but what's a good story about space, and asking that, and but you put it with two options, and then people think like, actually, I like a third one or a fourth one or whatever, and I think that's the good thing. And yeah, again, it's all about preferences, and it's very easy to get into religious fights about these kind of things, and it's but I like why you said it. It's a really good idea about getting to know each other, and it's also about showing, hey, you give me two options, or I give you two options, but I think about the third one at the same time, because it's I see the question behind the question. It's not just about these two options, it's about stories about space, and which one I prefer. So I take a step back, and yeah, I see so many different levels how you could use that kind of thing. So thanks for sharing it. um, I'm already seeing very seriously about what was for you a very silly question, but I think this is a little bit what this whole series is about. Let's get to know each other on a different kind of level, and all of these questions, they could be taken very seriously and very silly, and it really doesn't really matter for me. It's like, by answering it whatever way, I get to know Corinna a little better, and that's what, and not just me. I hope everybody who's here learns about that. So I hope it will inspire. I hope it won't get too much religious fights on when I publish it, but it's definitely something that is very interesting. I Yeah, we'll see how it goes, what my energy is when I edit this video, but I could probably think that this could be the tagline of the video, and then people will really like, what, she promised to have a decision and she's not going there. So yeah, we'll see where we go there. So thanks for bringing that seriously silliness, let's put it like that. Did you want to add anything else, because now I've been babbling a lot about that question?
Mm, maybe that I would much rather live in the Star Trek future. I would love to live in the Star Trek future. I just
Hmm.
I just don't think that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's we never know, of course, but that's it's always interesting to watch back some of these things 10, 100 years later and see what did that end up with, because I definitely see some of the things that were talking about the future in past videos. I was like, we're kind of there, we're kind of not there, and all these different kind of things. Um, Okay, I want to move to that next question. Who do you think I should ask next? And I think you had a few ideas on people you wanted to invite.
That was a really hard question because there are easily 50 people at Zipgate that I think are truly agile.
Mhm.
And I
That's why
only,
I'm asking you, because I have a list of 500 people at this moment, and I only want to invite the people, or I prefer to invite the people who've been invited by others, because it's my way of prioritizing. But I do understand how hard it is to just, and this is why you came up, I think, with a list of 3 people that you wanted to invite out of the 50 people that you have.
actually, I was like, I cannot just pick people from Zipgate. I gotta pick somebody else too because I also know at least 50 truly agile people outside of Zipgate. But from
Mm.
Zipgate, I pick Friederike Feld, Frida, who's been a Scrum Master for, I want to say 10 years, at least 10 years. Because she often gives me, just like this book actually, so something that I know and I have like a very vague concept of, and if I had to explain it to somebody, it would take me 10 minutes. And then sometimes Frida comes and she gives me like, she says this one sentence, and I'm like, yes, that, yes, and I'm gonna do that sentence from now on. So
So she's an inspiration at that level. That's what I'm hearing.
yes. Then Jonas Böttner, who is a developer,
Hmm.
because I think to be so, he's one of the most agilist people. that I know, and I think that the people who actually really do the work on the product are often underrepresented in things like that, because we think of agile coaches and scrum masters, and typically more than we think of developers.
Thank you very much. I really I want to stress out this little part because it's indeed very tempting to think that agile these days it's all about the coaches, but for me it started really on the technical side, and it's a part that is undervalued a lot these days. I still remember when I started, I actually came from the developer side, so I learned it by doing some stuff, and then other people said, "Well, Eve, what you're doing, a lot of other people are doing there, and a lot better." So I learned it a lot by that, and then gradually I learned, hey, there's a people side to it, and that's also important. And now we're 20 years later, and or more, 25 years later, and it looks like it's agile looks like it's only about Scrum and about team stuff. And it's like, well, without the technical stuff, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up, and in that sense, bringing technical people to it, because that's I want to. I look very hard on the diversity for this whole list, and it's one of the places where I'm unhappy about that I don't have enough technical people. So I'm really happy that when you bring another more technical person. So thank you very much for that. And then I think you had a third person that you wanted to bring
Yes.
in.
And for my not Zipgate pick, I pick Marianne Rabi. I think she's most known for sketchnoting.
Mm.
'Cause she's just a really cool person, and also very agile, obviously.
Thanks for bringing that. She was one of the people already on that list, and like I said, waiting for being invited. And I sometimes take the liberty to invite some other people, but it's yeah, again, then I have to pick out of the 500, so that's really hard. But so yeah, I'm always happy when people pick someone out of my list. Because it's like, yes, now I finally have the excuse to invite them earlier, or whatever that means. But I want to thank you for your time, because it's been a wonderful conversation. It's what is it? It's just after 9 o'clock in the evening, so it's very nice to, well, actually have lots of energy at the same time. It's like, okay, this, like I said, it's the second recording tonight already, so I'm really happy that I still have the energy at the end, and I think that's a lot to do with both your seriousness and your silliness about the answers. I think it was fun to do this. If people want to connect to you, what's a good way to connect to you?
Right now, the best way is probably Mastodon, and
Hmm.
second best way is email.
I didn't prepare email, and I didn't prepare Mastodon either, because it feels a little bit like, yeah, definitely Twitter is off the radar at this moment, I would say, for many people. Um, but I'm not always sure how active people are on Mastodon, to have to be honest, and I didn't think about that.
Actually, so you can find both on corinnabaldauf.de. So Mastodon and email. The engagement is really high on Mastodon. So it doesn't feel like there are that many people there, but really good conversations, and a lot more, I don't know, feels a little deeper, maybe because you can write a little longer things. Also, technical Discord. Discord? Yeah. No, Discord is the server. Discourse.
As a server, yeah, exactly. I agree, but I think it depends a little bit, or the feeling I have with Mastodon is that it depends a little bit on what server you are,
Yeah.
because it feels like if you're, I'm now on the Agile Alliance server, which I like very much that they invested in that, but there's not that many people on it, and then it sometimes feels a little bit harder to connect, and that's why I'm like, I like it. I agree. Some of the discussions I had they make me feel about the early days of Twitter. So really like, okay, good conversations. Then and I agree, the fact that I can type longer texts. Yeah. Like at the beginning, I learned a lot by being forced by Twitter to write smaller things, but now I'm also like, I see value in writing longer text. So yeah, I'm kind of learning at different kind of levels. So I definitely think, but I will link to both your private website, the Mastodon. Of course, like I said earlier on, I will link to Retromat. As well, and add the book, the English, and then maybe the German version of that book, because I think it's interesting as well, and all the other books that we talked about, because in the conversation we already mentioned the book from Esther and Diana. I think that's another important one to link to as well.
New edition out.
Yes, good. Thank you. Indeed, that's it's actually it's ordered. No, it's not ordered. It's it's interesting for me. It's on my order list of Amazon, but um the interesting part is at Amazon, I order way too many books. So for me, it's like I have a list of books that are ready to order, but as long as I'm not ready to reread or to start reading with one, it that list keeps growing until at some point it's like, this is a book I need now for whatever reason, and then I order a shitload of books. And so it's on my list, ready to order, but not. I did actually order it some time ago, and then then it was like, okay, I should give it to someone else, and so
Okay. Yeah,
that
that
didn't
happens.
work out. That happens with other people, because especially, I think it was such an important book, like you said earlier on. I think the whole community, we are so much. We should be very thankful to both these ladies about that book. I think it had a huge impact on me personally, but I think on lots of people. Um, it's wonderful what that book did, the energy that they put in, and so I'm really looking forward to that second edition. So
Yes.
I can't imagine how it can still be improved, and at the same time, knowing these ladies and what they have learned over the years, it's
Learn so
definitely
much.
sure that.
Mhm.
So yeah, there is definitely a lot there. Well, thank you for your time. I hope we run into each other in the future. At this moment, I'm passing a lot of my time doing these recordings from home to avoid to go too much outside for lots of different reasons. But at the same time, just like you stated, there is a lot of value also in meeting people and physically. So I'm definitely sure that at some point that will happen. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for inviting me. That was great. Thank you.
The pleasure was all mine.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of Agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other Agilists.